And welcome to another update. In this one, we'll be covering the latest updates on the whole front line, and we'll be starting out here by the HERZHAN area, as the latest news from this area was that the Ukrainian forces managed to cross the area around the DONETSK bridge into the Dacha area. However, according to the Russian side, this whole area was already a gray zone. That means the Russian forces had no presence in this area, and the Ukrainian forces just entered without any resistance. And from that, we can now see that there is some footage from that. And we can see here, according to Russian sources, these are 2 times FAB-500 bombs that lands on the Ukrainian forces. And then here we have some aftermath of those footage where we see that there are some smoke clouds from what we can see. So essentially, the Russian forces are claiming to have destroyed the Selfie warriors, and that is the end of that saga, if that is true. We're now at 96,737 subscribers. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as I want to hit at 100,000 subscribers. Make sure to help me out. Thank you all for watching and enjoy the video. Then we move on to the Donbass region, where here in the Uledar area, there is this drone footage of the city, where we can see here that the city itself is filled with high-rise buildings, just like it is shown with the satellite imagery. But we also see that there's a lot of smoke from artillery and bomb fire, as Russian forces have started using these bombs all over the battlefield. But especially with this, there's a lot of changes coming to the front line, as most fortified positions by the Ukrainian forces will be breachable now by the Russian forces. As for the rest of the Donetsk front, it is the usual fighting by the north of Avdiivka all the way down south to Novomikhailivka, where the Russian forces just attack continuously in these positions. Then we move on to the Kreminna area, where the same is reported. Russian forces continue their attacks all the way from Merkiivka all the way down to Spirne, where there's continuous attacks in all of the villages on this front line. Then we move on to the Bakhmut front, where fighting continues by Ivanivske, as well as to the south of Oryhova-Vasilivka, and to the north by the E40 highway. Then we move on to the interesting parts, where we see here the Russian forces continue their attacks and advance by the road here to the west of Khomove, where the Russian forces continue their attempts at breaching and taking full control over the trenches here by the road to gain a proper foothold and completely cut off the road. Currently, they have managed to cut off the road, but it is still contested in these southern, western, and eastern parts, but they've captured everything to the north of the road. As for Khomove itself, the latest news actually suggests that the Russian forces overnight attacked the village and have now entrenched themselves in some part of it. It wasn't specified where, but I assume it is here to the north, as they could have gone through the forest line and then entered the village from this northern part. Otherwise, they would have to have gone through all of the trench networks here to the west, which I sincerely doubt. So most likely they have breached the defensive line to the north and have reached the village and entrenched themselves within it. So they're now fighting within the village of Khomove. So for the ones who report it as taken, it has not been taken yet, according to the latest news. Then we move on to Bakhmut itself, where the Russian forces have significantly advanced here to the eastern part again, as they have managed to capture 3 parts, separate parts. The southern part here by the Volodya Krylova road, where they are advancing towards the river line, trying to take control over the residential area here to the south of the village. We also see them fighting to the north of the river line, where they are advancing towards the high-rise areas, capturing all the residential areas in between to make sure that they have full control over the roads in and out of the defensive fortified position. As for the northeast, we see here the Russian forces have managed to capture some high-rise buildings here to the east, as well as the last bit of residential areas to the northeast, which leaves in nothing between the Russian forces and the garage area, all the way around from the northwest to the north and all the way to the east. And from this, we have also received the latest reports that the Russian forces actually managed to break through one of these 3 points and have entered into the garage area. At the same time, we receive reports that there's heavy fighting by the Levanovskoho Street here to the west of the garage area, which means that most likely the breach have happened in the eastern parts or the northern parts. Most like the northern parts, as that is has Russian forces to each flank, to the eastern flank and the western flank, which allows them to focus their forces here to the north. So the Russian forces have entered the garage area and is now fighting within it. At the same time, we see here to the northwest, fighting continues by the Olympic School, and there's also fighting continuing here to the southwest, both at the industrial faculty as well as to the southwestern edges, outskirts of the city, by the high-rise buildings here and the post office. So the Russian forces continuously attack all over the whole front line here in Bakhmut, and from that we can see these latest drone footage. We can see from Bakhmut where the Russian forces have completely destroyed the city. There's nothing but rubble left, and there's heavy bombing and shelling on the western parts, on whatever parts the Ukrainian forces are still holding is being turned completely to dust as Russian forces continuously bomb and shell the area. And with all of this talk about bombs, here is this picture of bombs where we can see that there is a lot of types of these Russian bombs. So we have the inner parts, which are the smaller bombs, the FAB-50, KAB-50, and so on. So these are 50 to 100 kilogram loads. And then we see here, there's the mid-sized, which is 250 to 500. Then we have the outer ring, which is from 500 to 5,000, even 9,000. And then we have FOAB, which is the father of all bombs. That is the largest normal bomb that the Russian forces have. This is the largest bomb that isn't nuclear. So the Russian forces would use this in a scenario where they have prepared and probably serviced all of their forces, because currently they are slowly moving up as the Air Force continues with training, gets more skills and so on. As they get accustomed to these weapons, they will start using larger and larger loads, and then eventually you will see 3,000, 5,000 and even 9,000 load bombs, and maybe even, if the war drags on, the father of all bombs. So if you assume that with the continuous use of FAB-500, then know that there's OFAB-500U, there's OFZAB-500, there's ODAB-500 PMV, and so on. So they have a lot of types. If they have 500 of one type and then use 500 bombs, that doesn't mean that they don't have anything else. They probably have 500 of each of the types, so they have thousands upon thousands of bombs. So in the end, that is just a hypothetical number. I'm not sure exactly how much they have, but they have a lot. That is clear. So don't expect the Russians to run out of weapons, bombs, or anything really, because even if they end up running out, they have the industrial capacity to keep producing it. As we have seen with the shelling and the missiles, the West claimed they would run out already in March of last year. We are now 1 year further than that prediction, and they still launch missiles, they still launch rockets, they still launch bombs, and they still have tanks. Anything else, they have it. So that is all for this update, and I thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a great day.